All right, everyone. Welcome back to JPCE, Spiritual Talk. It's Jared Campbell. So we have a lot to cover. Been kind of a busy day. I had some things planned, but went to the coast, spent some time with the family, right? Day kind of got away. But driving back from the coast, I noticed a lot of things happening. So I've kind of shifted a little bit on what we're going to talk about. When I already had something planned, we're going to talk about the most recent updates. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss a little more about Israel. We're going to talk about Israel tomorrow. We're going to talk about Zelensky also. I was going to talk about that today, but we're going to just cover some new quick articles. For those of you who follow the Bible studies, you have a bonus. Tomorrow, I'm going to do 2 sacred legacies. I had the one for today done, but since I spent time with the family, so I'm going to do that one tomorrow plus an additional one. So it'll be a longer video, but 2 sacred legacies. We'll talk about the saints. Without further ado, let's get the screen shared over and get right to our articles. So thank you all again for following. All right, so I'm going to get in here and break all this down. Just like I do with my Bible teachings, I'll do the same thing with these articles. Break them down, we'll talk about it. All right, so here's the first one on the screen. All right, so let's get this going. Thank you all again for following. JPCE, Spiritual Talk, Jared Campbell. I love you all so much, right? Do not live in fear, right? Do not live in fear. Just be prepared. So we go on your screen. It says deep concern in the U.S. and China. They warn of a blow from North Korea and a major crisis in Korea. Will the Americans withstand a third front? So things are about to get going, right? So crack in China-Russia relations due to North Korea. So here we go. So the U.S. and Chinese officials are deeply concerned about an impending crisis on the Korean Peninsula, following recent provocations by North Korea. These include 3 excursions into South Korea, large-scale Russian Navy exercises in the Pacific, and new defense structures and missile tests by Kim Jong-un. The situation raises alarms about North Korea's potential to initiate a regional crisis, further complicated by the defense pact signed between Russia and North Korea. Here's some key developments, though, right? So some key developments. So North Korean provocations. North Korea has conducted 3 excursions into South Korea. The president of North Korea is building new defense lines and has tested multiple missiles. Russia's Pacific Fleet has been conducting large-scale exercises. 2, U.S. and Chinese concerns. Both nations are worried that North Korea's actions could lead to a significant crisis in Northeast Asia. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell noted China's concerns over the defense pact between Russia and North Korea. China-Russia relations. The defense pact could cause a rift between China and Russia. Former U.S. diplomat Danny Russell suggests that China's influence over North Korea could diminish as Russia steps in. 4, geopolitical implications. Listen attentively. North Korea's actions could draw the U.S. into a third central conflict front alongside Ukraine and the Middle East. The defense pact between Russia and North Korea could destabilize the Asian Pacific region. China is cautious but concerned about losing control over North Korea, which could become a nuclear threat on its doorstep. Global context. The situation reflects the complex interplay between significant powers of China, Russia, and the U.S. having vested interest in the region. The potential for a broader conflict looms as regional tensions escalate into global instability. Recent actions by North Korea have heightened concerns over U.S. and Chinese officials, fearing an impending crisis that could significantly destabilize Northeast Asia. North Korea's aggressive incursions into South Korea, combined with large-scale military exercise by the Russian Navy and new missile tests, signal a troubling escalation. China, despite its alliance with Russia, is wary of North Korea's provocations, especially following the defense pact signed between Russia and North Korea. This agreement could alter regional power dynamics, challenging China's traditional influence over Pyongyang. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Kurt Campbell emphasized China's concerns and palpable, as North Korea's actions could lead to a regional crisis. The defense pact also suggests a possible rift between China and Russia despite their united front against the West. Also, I've talked about this. Former U.S. diplomat Danny Russell pointed out that China's influence over North Korea might wane at Russia's steps. As Russia steps in, a development that Beijing view as a significant threat, right? The delicate balance of power in the region is a risk, with North Korea potentially becoming an unpredictable nuclear power. The broader implications are equally alarming. The U.S. faces the prospect of a third central conflict with tensions in Ukraine and the Middle East, already stretching its resources. Regional tensions in Northeast Asia could escalate, potentially causing global conflict. In conclusion, the evolving situation on the Korean Peninsula is a stark reminder of the fragile balance of power and global geopolitics. As North Korea continues its provocations, the international community must navigate a complex web of alliances and strategic interests to maintain stability, right? So here is a video. So seeing the video is the latest mass launch of 18 KN-25 ballistic missiles with a range of 380 kilometers, right? Kim and Putin during the visit to North Korea.
동반자 관계에 관한 조약 조인식에 이어 러시아 연방 대통령 울라지미르 미치 푸틴 동지와 금수산 영빈관 정원 구역에서 시간을 함께 보내시며 친교를 두터이 하셨습니다. 김성은 동지께서는 선물 받은 승용차의 성능을 높이 평가하시며 훌륭한 차를 선물로 받은 데 대하여 다시금 대통령 동지에게 사의를 표하셨습니다. 푸틴 대통령 동지는 이에 사의를 표시했습니다. 금수산 용빈관 정원에서 푸틴 대통령 동지에게 우리나라의 국견인 풍산깨 한 쌍을 선물하셨습니다. 푸틴 184장에서 평양으로 이어진 뜻깊은 상봉과 회담을 통하여 새 시대 상과 목표 실현을 위한 중요 문제들에서 만족한 견해 일치를 이룩한 데 대하여 평가하시고 훌륭한 역사와 전통을 기반으로 하는 조로 설린 우호 관계를 두 나라 인민들의 지향과 염원에 부응하는 새로운 높은 단계로 계속 활력 있게 추동해 나갈 의지를 피력하셨습니다.
All right, here we go. Poland is overrun with logistics, hubs and NATO bases for the final battle with Russia, division and brigade deployment in the Slovakia corridor. All right, so in preparation for potential conflict with Russia, NATO is significantly boosting its logistical and military infrastructure in Poland, particularly in the Slovakia corridor. This corridor, a critical 70-kilometer stretch between Lithuania and Poland, is strategically vital for connecting the Baltic countries to the rest of the EU and poses a direct link between Belarus and Russia, enclave of Kaliningrad. Concurrently, these are reports of covert mobilization of Polish forces and significant enhancement in military logistics and infrastructure. underscoring Poland's role as NATO's primary outpost in Eastern Europe. Key developments, right? NATO is enhancing its logistical capabilities and building new bases in Poland. The Suwalki corridor is a focal point, considered one of Europe's most dangerous areas since General Ben Hodges' warning 9 years ago. Recent exercises like Griffin Shock tested NATO's emergency response plans in the region. The Polish army is mobilizing reserves and forming battle groups near Kaliningrad. Reports indicate a covert mobilization. Up to 120,000 Polish soldiers, including active soldiers and reservists. Poland is preparing its logistics infrastructure for rapid troop movements, with 2 new bases near the Ukrainian and Belarusian borders. Infrastructure enhancement. Significant road and infrastructure improvements are underway to support NATO operations in the Suwalki corridor. Poland is constructing a new rail transshipment hub founded by the EU to bolster NATO's logistical capabilities. This project includes modernizing port facilities to accommodate large military vessels, enhancing the ability to transport and supply troops. NATO's focus on the Suwalki corridor and Poland's logistical upgrades signal preparation for potential conflict with Russia. Poland's role as NATO's eastern outpost is being solidified with extensive military and logistical support. The mobilization infrastructure projects indicate a long-term strategy to ensure readiness for rapid deployment and sustained operations in Eastern Europe. The recent report highlights NATO's extensive efforts to enhance Poland's military and logistical infrastructure, in particular in that vital area of the Suwalki corridor. This area, a narrow strip of land between Lithuania and Poland, connect the Baltic states to the rest of the EU and crucial for NATO's defense posture in Eastern Europe. I apologize. They won't let me enlarge it. So, all right, moving right along. So the largest U.S. naval operation since World War II failed miserably. The Houthis hit Greek-owned ships. Big winners, Russia, China. So the Houthis hit a second Greek-owned ship. The attacks in full alignment with Russian and Chinese interests. So the largest U.S. naval operation since World War II, aimed at securing free navigation in the Red Sea, has failed as Houthi forces continue to target commercial vessels. Man, This failure has significant geopolitical ramifications, benefiting Russia and China while causing economic strain on Western nations. Greek-owned ships have been among the recent targets, underscoring the Houthis' effectiveness and the broader implications of global trade and security. The Houthis' attacks on Greek-owned ships. The Houthis have attacked Greek-owned ships, Tudor, and Trans World Navigator using uncrewed marine vehicles. Interesting. These attacks align with Russian and Chinese interests, highlighting the geopolitical dimensions of the conflict. The largest operation since World War II aimed to ensure stability and protect navigation along the 1,200-mile Red Sea coastline. Despite efforts, including destroying over 150 drones, the Houthis have conducted 100 attacks since November, impacting global trade routes. Wow, interesting. The economic impact. Major shipping companies are avoiding the Suez Canal and opting for larger routes via the Cape of Good Hope, which increases travel time and fuel costs. This disruption has caused significant economic strain, notably affecting European production and supply chains. Russia and China have benefited from the situation, with Russian oil transports dominating the Suez Canal. The Houthis have promised not to attack Russian and Chinese vessels, allowing these nations to navigate safely and avoid the economic fallout faced by Western countries. No shocker there, huh? The U.S. naval operation, described as the largest since World War II, has not achieved its objective by securing free navigation in the Red Sea. Right? It's because of the persistent, effective attacks by the Houthi forces. Right? They're causing a lot of issues. So here, watch the Houthis sink the Greek-owned vessel. The last time the U.S. Navy had an operation, the current crisis in the Red Sea, was World War II, says Navy Vice Admiral Brad Cooper.
There are still ships going.
All right. We're going to move on. All right. We're going to try and get this done. So the next article on the screen. Incident at the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs with the U.S. ambassador, Larva and Peskov, described to her the coming Armageddon. There will be serious repercussions. So this next article is interesting. All right. So let's break this down. All right. So the recent summit, right? So they summoned, right, U.S. Ambassador Lynn Tracy by Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Okay. So the recent summoning of the U.S. Ambassador Lynn Tracy by Russia Ministry of Foreign Affairs marks a significant escalation in U.S.-Russia relations. The intense verbal exchange led by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov underscores the gravity of the situation following a missile attack in Crimea. Russia's accusation against the U.S. for allegedly supporting Kiev's military actions are not merely diplomatic. Posturing, right? find where I'm at here in my notes. I'm sorry. So right there. So Russia's accusation against the U.S. for allegedly supporting Kiev's military actions are not merely diplomatic posturing. They signify deep-seated frustrations and the potential for retaliatory actions. The warnings of a serious repercussion and the brutality of the language used by Russian officials highlight a scenario where both nations could be drawn into a more direct and dangerous confrontation. Russian state media, listen attentively, Russian state media invokes the historical context of World War II to galvanize domestic support and prepare the populace for potential sacrifices. This narrative underscores the perceived threat posed by U.S. actions and aims to foster national unity and resolve. From a geopolitical perspective, this incident could have far-reaching implications. Moscow's promise of retaliatory measures could manifest in various forms, from cyber attacks to more direct military engagements in contested regions. Such actions could exacerbate global tensions and potentially disrupt international trade and security. This development carefully reassessing the U.S. and its allies' strategies and potential risks, while crucial from a strategic standpoint. The ongoing support for Ukraine must be balanced against the risk of further escalating a conflict with nuclear arms adversaries. In conclusion, the confrontation at the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs is a stark reminder of international relations, volatile and unpredictable nature in times of conflict. As both sides brace for potential retaliatory measures, the global community must remain vigilant and proactive in seeking diplomatic solutions to prevent further escalations. Okay. So we're going to close out talking about Scott Ritter. Probably a lot of you probably know Scott Ritter, right? But I fit this in as a closing because it kind of goes with what we're already talking about. So whether some of you agree with Scott Ritter or not, it really depends, right? So Scott Ritter says we cannot beat the Chinese. Okay, they are waging a Ukraine-style war in the Pacific. All right. So like I said, whether you agree with him or not, this is what he says. So Scott Ritter, a U.S. military expert, retired Marine Corps intelligence officer, has issued a stark warning regarding U.S. strategies in the Southeast Asia. He asserts that the U.S. is setting the stage for a conflict with China by using nations like Taiwan and the Philippines as proxies, similar to this approach in the Ukraine war. And very, very, very interesting, right? Ritter also emphasized that the U.S. cannot defeat China in a direct military engagement and cautions that such strategies could lead to disastrous consequences for the involved nations. U.S. strategy in Southeast Asia. The U.S. is allegedly seeking to provoke a conflict with China by utilizing Southeast Asian countries as proxies. Right? We talked about that. So we're going to go ahead and listen to Scott Ritter, and then we're going to close out. Right? I might have to go back out. I'm sorry. Hold on. All right. Now we got this.
The United States cannot fight and engage China and win. We will not beat the Chinese. We cannot beat the Chinese, and we know this, and yet we're using the Philippines to create the conditions of potential conflict with the Chinese. Please understand that for the Filipino people, this is a recipe for disaster. You think America is your friend. So too did the Ukrainian people, and they are dying by the hundreds of thousands. Friends don't let friends die in those quantities. The Ukrainians have been displaced by the tens of millions. Friends don't let friends have their cities destroyed in this manner. Friends don't let friends have families separated, have mothers and children destined to a life of refugee status in perpetual poverty. That's not how friends behave. America has never been the friend of the Ukrainians, and we are not the friends of the Filipinos. The United States cannot fight and engage China and win. We will not beat the Chinese. We cannot beat the Chinese, and we know this, and yet we're using the Philippines to create the conditions of potential conflict with the Chinese. Please understand that for the Filipino people, this is a recipe for disaster. You think America is your friend. So too did the Ukrainian people, and they are dying by the hundreds of thousands. Friends don't let friends die in those quantities. We don't like you. If we did like you, we wouldn't be doing this to you. We are using you. You are a tool, nothing but a tool, and when the tool ceases to be useful, we will discard you. And discard you means usually after a war that devastates you. We are using you to gain some sort of momentary leverage over the Chinese. We will fail. The Chinese will win, and you will be destroyed.
All right. Before we close out, here's some key points I took away. The U.S. strategy in Southeast Asia, right? Ritter's dire warnings, right? Can't really ignore them, right? He was an intelligence officer. And then the comparison to Ukraine, the Ukraine-style war that's happening in the Pacific, just like in Ukraine, proxy wars, right? I've said this, right? You're going to see a lot of proxy wars, right? People are going to get rich off this, okay? Think about that, right? So I'm going to go ahead and close out. I don't want to look at any more notes, right? I think we kind of got the gist of it. I want to close out. I wanted to say that tomorrow we're going to continue. I'm going to talk about a little more about Israel. We're going to talk about Zelensky. We're also going to talk about Zelensky as well, and continue on the discussion of World War III. Thank you all again for following. For those who follow the Bible studies, I'm doing 2 Sacred Legacies tomorrow. Please click on the link for the write-up of this, right? So you can follow along. Sometimes I have a hard time pronouncing words. Like I said, I had a head injury. So I love what I do. I love researching this stuff. I love you all so much. Thank you for following. We're going to close out, right? Love you all so much. Thank you for following. All right, guys, I'm out.